Oh, hey guys, what's going on? It's been a minute. So over the past, I guess, few weeks or so, I have actually been working on the Turbo IS300 build a little bit. I just finally got around to starting some of those miscellaneous projects and stuff that I've been wanting to do on the car for a really long time. And so obviously it's been a while since I've uploaded any Turbo IS300 content to the channel, and so I just figured this would be a good opportunity to hopefully bring you guys back up to speed as far as what's changed with the build so far, and maybe even talk about a little bit of what's to come in the near future, because there's some pretty cool stuff coming. But anyway, let's get started. Got to give a quick shout out to the wife for letting me steal her garage spot for the night. I gave the daily driver here a bath yesterday, and so she let me park it in here overnight just so that I could savor the cleanliness for longer than an hour. The cars get dirty really fast when we park them outside here. So anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. This is what we want. Yeah. So the engine bay is a bit of a disaster right now. You can see obviously I have the turbo off the car, which we will talk about in a little bit, but you'll notice the battery is missing. So I finally got around to relocating the battery to the trunk area, which again is one of those things that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, just because it helps to really simplify and clean up the wiring situation here in the engine bay. So the battery usually takes up basically this whole corner of the engine bay, and so with it out of the way, I was able to kind of shift this fuse box, which used to mount kind of right here up high on top of this strut tower area. I was able to shift it back and also down a little bit, just to kind of fill this dead space. And also the fuse box looked really out of place sitting way up high here with all this open area. So just by using some custom aluminum brackets, I was able to relocate the fuse box a little bit for a better look. So it's kind of hard to see back there, but back behind this fuse box is where I have mounted the power distribution block. So it takes the main power from the battery and distributes it to the starter and this fuse box, and then from this fuse box it gets distributed again to the alternator and all of the other electrical stuff on the car. So all of the power distribution is kind of isolated to this section of the engine bay, which is nice. Alright, so let's go take a look at the trunk area so I can show you guys what the battery relocation setup looks like back here. There's no battery. Just kidding. Give me just a second. So it's a pretty basic setup back here in the trunk. This is just one of the Summit Racing boxes, which are fairly inexpensive, and it actually fits really well back here in the spare tire area. You can see I have the battery box vent installed and running out kind of the driver's side, and then everything else as far as powers and grounds coming out of the passenger side of the battery box. So this is a 200 amp breaker, so I always prefer to run a breaker as opposed to something like a fuse, because you might not always have a spare fuse on hand if it gets blown, and the breaker can obviously be reset just by flipping the switch. In addition to that, it's nice to be able to kill all the power to the car with the simple flip of a switch, instead of having to pull the battery box lid off and disconnect the battery that way. So if I know I'm going to be storing the car or working on the car, I can just come back here, flip the breaker off, and I know that the car has no power. The only other things coming off the breaker here, these smaller leads, are just the main powers for the primary and secondary fuel pumps. So that's pretty much it as far as the battery relocation goes. Everything turned out really good. Let's go talk about the brakes. So I'm finally getting rid of the factory ABS system in the car. Once I started with the battery relocation project, I quickly realized that I was just so done and tired of working around and dealing with the factory ABS. So anyone with a Turbo IS300 can probably relate to that, because it's just one of those things that seems like it's always in the way and always causing problems. So there's usually, the large main ABS pump module that sits right here near the front of the engine, and there's a ton of brake lines that run along the frame, on the top side of the firewall to the master cylinder. It's just a huge mess of hard brake lines and other equipment that it was a huge relief to be able to finally rip all that crap out. And not only does it clean up the look of the engine bay, but it makes it way easier to be able to work on anything on this side, and even stuff along the firewall. It's a lot easier to get to that stuff. So definitely a huge benefit to being able to rip that stuff out. So you can see I still have the main ABS pump module harness and connector just kind of taped up and sitting here. I'm a little hesitant to chop it all off just yet until I'm confident that the speedometer and all of that stuff still functions like it's supposed to. I have asked a couple of guys that have done this already, and they claim for this year that this should not be a problem. Everything should work fine even with that system unplugged. So until I test it for myself, I'm just leaving that there just in case. And then once I'm confident that there aren't any issues, I'll probably just chop it off somewhere up there and get rid of it. So with the ABS completely removed, I obviously had to figure out some kind of solution for not only just replacement brake lines, but also a proportioning valve in order to properly adjust the front to rear brake bias. Because that's something that's handled automatically by the factory ABS. So luckily, Chase Bays actually makes this pretty slick kit for the IS300 exactly for this purpose. So it includes basically everything you need to bypass or eliminate the ABS, including the lines and an adjustable proportioning valve that basically restricts the amount of pressure being applied to the rear brakes. So the only issue I'm having with this kit so far is this brake line that runs from the master cylinder over to the passenger front caliper is just a little bit too short for the way that I want to route it. You can see it's, needs to be maybe 4.5 or 5 inches longer in order for me to get it just the way I want it. And so I don't know if I can have maybe some kind of brake line extension made there, or if I'll have to have a completely new line made. But that's probably an issue that is kind of just isolated to my particular setup, because can't really see, but I'm trying to run this brake line down all the way underneath this big custom intake manifold. So definitely takes a little bit of length to get it under there, and maybe they don't account for something like that when they're building the lines. But either way, we'll get that figured out. So you can see I have the front brakes removed right now. I'm going to be upgrading the front brake system on the car. I'm still not sure exactly what route I want to take with that, whether it be Supra TT or LS400 or even something aftermarket, but I'm still kind of just weighing my options and doing some research to figure out what solution will kind of suit my needs best moving forward. But for now, the rear brakes are going to stay stock because I want to keep those brakes back there as small and low profile as possible, just in case I upgrade to a little more aggressive wheel and tire setup in the rear. I want to have as much clearance as possible. So anyway, we'll get the brake system figured out. If you guys have any suggestions on the front brakes, feel free to leave it in a comment. So back to why the turbo is currently off the car. I have a pretty good reason. I got me one of those EFR 9280s to replace my EFR 9180. So what do you say we open this thing and take a peek? Oh baby, that's the good stuff right there. I'll throw my 9180 up here too on the bench, and we'll just do a quick little side-by-side. So you can see the frame size and overall exterior dimensions of the turbos are identical. There's nothing different there. But what is different is the inducer side of the compressor wheel. So this 9280 is, I believe, a 73.7 millimeter inducer, while the older 9180 is a 67.7. So pretty significant jump in terms of the compressor wheel inducer size. But that being said, the compressor wheel exducer size is the same between both units, 91 millimeters, and the turbine wheel is exactly the same between both units. So aside from, the fancy black anodized compressor wheel, the inducer size of the compressor wheel is the only thing that's different between these. So you can see I even have the exact same turbine housings on both of them. It's just the 105 AR non-wastegated twin scroll housing. So that way I'll be able to really see kind of how these units compare apples to apples. So I'm not expecting a whole lot as far as horsepower increase just by swapping to the EFR 9280 here, mainly because I think the exducer size of the compressor wheel is just as crucial for the flow potential as the inducer size. So where the exducer is the same, again, I'm not expecting a whole lot here. But that being said, if I pick up anywhere from 30 to 50 wheel horsepower on similar boost numbers, I'd be completely satisfied. And there's always a chance that maybe it'll surprise us. So we'll see how it goes. So I have the standard EFR accessories put back on my old turbo, kind of just in preparation to sell it, obviously, because I won't be needing it anymore with the 9280 now. This housing, though, I've got kind of stripped down in preparation to send it off to OCD Works so that they can perform their T51R modification on the compressor housing. So that's why these compressor housing inlets look so different, is because this older turbo has already been modified and this one has not yet, but will be hopefully this week. If you know anyone that's in the market for a 9180, feel free to hit me up. I might just throw this thing on eBay here within the next couple weeks if no one picks it up before then. But it's basically brand spanking new, probably has less than 1,000 miles on it over the course of the last couple years because the car never gets driven. Absolutely no shaft play, no damage to the wheels, T51R mod already, so this thing is ready to rock. I still have all of the original packaging and paperwork that came with that 9180 as well. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this little update on the Turbo IS. Should have another update here, hopefully within the next few weeks, so be sure to stay tuned, subscribe. As always, thanks for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya.